Can everyone hear me fine?
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you all so much for coming today. My name's Jack and I am John's son. We really appreciate everyone who's been able to make the journey, and for those who couldn't make it, obviously, we completely understand. When I was thinking about writing this kind of eulogy, I was thinking about times I've spoken to my dad about memorials and funerals. And I remember going to a funeral with him and him telling me how it's really silly in a way because you only ever remember the good stuff at funerals and no one ever talks about people's flaws and things. But I think he won't mind us being slightly hypocritical and just sticking to that format for him. So I will. I had a couple of memories I wanted to share of him. Obviously, you can't distill these things into a few minutes, but one of my favourite memories is really long drives with him where we'd come up to Sheffield together, and I was very young, and I'd just be able to ask him any question ever, why is the sky blue? And he'd be able to tell me before the days of Googling. And some of these, as I got older, he'd drive me to university and often leave me after a trip to Waitrose and buying a mountain of basically ribeye steak, truffle oil, and béarnaise sauce. So I would eat better than any other student for about a week and a half, and then go back to 24p pack of Tesco value fish fingers for the rest of the term, to his major dismay. But then the other thing was just that with loved ones, he just had this insatiable appetite for updates on your life. And when when he was here, I was just getting I just send him a picture, because it was great with WhatsApp, because before he'd have to have these big reports, but then with WhatsApp you just send him a picture. I'm having a meeting in this building, and who built the building? When was it built? What does the room look like? What are the toilets like? Are they disabled friendly? And you're going like, yeah, okay, right now. You keep answering and answering, and eventually you're like, I have to now stop answering these questions. You're like, no problem, love you, great. And it's really odd now, because obviously I just think every time I do anything, I go, can't send a message, that kind of thing. So it's sad, but it's a really nice thing. I think anyone who is his loved one, I'm sure Fifi in particular, will be able to attest that he just would be very happy to listen to you all day long about the minutiae of your life. And to the point where my wife Juliet, who's here, he loved custard and she loves custard. And so they both love custard tarts and pastel de natas and other things. So he created a WhatsApp group just for the three of us. I don't know why I'm included, I'm ambivalent about custard, but a WhatsApp group for the three of us just to talk about custard updates. So if we ever had a good custard tart, it would get shared with the group and we'd have to discuss the texture and the taste. And yeah, he's just very, very interested in our lives, which was lovely. I think I'm going to invite Louise up in a second, who is my aunt and his younger sister. But before I do, for all of the speakers, just to relieve some of the pressure for speaking, the other thing was talking to him occasionally about this kind of event, and what would you want in a memorial, and he'd just go, I don't care really, for my mind, I'm dead, I'm not around, it's for everyone else, it's not for me. And I'd go, okay, that's very nice, but what would you like? Because I might need to do this one day. And you have to sidle up to them from behind, oh yeah, but what about? And the more I'd press, eventually you'd just hit a brick wall and you'd go, listen, I love you, but if I'm dead, I don't give a shit. So with those thoughts in mind, no pressure to anyone speaking. Louise, please.
Hang on, Lou, let's just adjust you. There you go.
Yeah? Right, I want to read a poem to you, if I can see what I'm writing. I was blessed to have a lovely brother. His name was John. He always loved me, looked after me, and took me to school and grandma's. He always took me to Edale on the steam train to go and climb the mountains, such as Mantor and Kinder, and helping me up the difficult spots. He always loved me, my brother John. I used to text my brother John. He would only accept these on Signal, as it was more secure. My text would read Wales forever. Where rugby was concerned, my brother John. Many of our conversations were linked to cycling and fond childhood memories, like when I crashed my trike going down Woodvale Road and crossing in Cliffvale Road and hitting another garden wall through a brake failure. Helen and John were in the garden and came to rescue me, my brother John. Going on holiday to Italy in 1963 with my family and singing 9 Green Bottles, and many people from Europe, one of them asked, "What is this 9 green bottles?" This amused him, my brother John. One of our visits to our auntie and uncle in Barrow-Furness, when being chased by a gang of boys, looking after me, John said, "Run home and lock the door," which I did. Suddenly I heard John banging on the door, saying, "Let me in." Unfortunately, I didn't. And then I heard untoward noises. I had done what he told me to do. Afterwards, he was livid with me, and I was baffled why. My poor bruised brother John. Another of my abiding memories of John was being allowed to sit with all his teenage school friends and John, but only on the proviso of supplying them with cups, mugs of tea. I was trapped as all these friends were so appealing. Again, I did as I was told, my brother John. Lastly, I chatted about my new folding trike. He was impressed that it had having disc brakes. For his 70th, I sent him a mug with twant on it, not impressed with this, stating not for public viewing. So I sent him a mug with 1951 in its highlights. He said that would go on public view. He used it all the time. These are available from a company linked to a river in South America, and I was detested by my brother John. He'll be sadly missed, the best brother I ever had, whom I loved so much, the brother who always supported me, the one who played the guitar and mesmerised me, my brother John.
It says Pete and Chris, but he's gone to the toilet. I'll start without him. I first saw John, or the first time I remember seeing John, he was at the top of a tree just up the road from our house. Was he? Yeah, he was. And I think I was 11. And then I found that he and his mum and dad and Louise and Helen lived next door, but 5 to us, which was really good. And we became, well, besties, as you'd say these days. And we had all sorts of fun, not too many scrapes from 11 to 12 to 13. I think when we got to about 14, we got hold of a tape recorder and started doing sketches of comedy. We used to watch Not Only But Also with Peter Cook and Dudley Moore and yeah, all right, Dad, yeah, and we did all that stuff. And I remember one sketch we did, it was about Pedro, the plastic grape manufacturer. And I was the interviewer. So I understand that you manufacture these grapes from plastic. Si, senor, that is what I do. And what do you do then with these grapes you've made from plastic? I seal them. Oh, what do you seal them with then? I seal them on the market. It's John talking about. Chris, I've just excused you because you've gone to the toilet, but you know, you're welcome to. We carried on, you know, with the fun and the humour, but then Beatles albums were coming out, and either myself or John or my sister would have bought Beatles for Sale or With the Beatles or whatever the albums were, and I was pretty lucky in those days. We had a snooker table up in the playroom in our house. It was quite salubrious where we lived, wasn't it, guys? Louise and Helen. Yeah, it was all right. And so John and I would go upstairs and play snooker and listen to the Beatles and love every minute of it. And then Sergeant Pepper came along.
What, in person?
Well, it could have happened. In my memory, he was definitely there. Yeah. We used to. I goodness knows how passed the 11 plus. Obviously, John passed the 11 plus with honours and distinction, you know, but I managed to scrape through. But I went to a school called Abbeydale, and John went to a school called High Stores. And to get to school, we used to walk across Endcliffe Park together and jump on the 74 bus, which took High Stores, he used to get off, and then down to Abbeydale. And some mornings, and I know there were at least 2 of these mornings in the, well, I suppose we'd be 15, 16. If we don't run, we might miss the bus. Oh no. Oh, there goes the bus. What shall we do? Well, let's go to the Scout Hut. We'll break in and spend the day on truant. So we used to truant together, and I know we did it at least twice. And the amazing thing about, we used to go up to the Scout Hut, which was near where we lived. We climbed through a window, didn't have keys for the place, and we played football or whatever we did inside the Scout Hut. And come sort of 12 o'clock, well, I'm hungry. And John would say, well, if we go down to my mum's, we'll say we've come home from school for dinner. And I don't know if she really fell for it, but she never said, and then she'd make us dinner. Okay, back to school now. Whoa, where shall we go now? So it's good. But High Stores now. This is my friend Chris. Well, I say my friend Chris. My friend Chris as of yesterday, and my friend Chris of 15 years ago. And this is the first time we've been together for 15 years. Not going to go into any detail, but no. But what we do know, and we were saying yesterday when we met, John would be so delighted that as a result of his demise, we're talking again. So there we go.
Thank you, Pete. Well, indeed, it was John who introduced me to Pete for his sins. I went to secondary school with John. I think I was probably about 15. I can't remember. I can't remember any particular event when John showed up, but he sort of crept into my school life and weaved in and out of it, and we spent a lot of time together. I do remember, and I think I've stayed in touch with John, although our lives didn't cross a lot since then. I stayed in touch with him throughout. I want to say that in my experience, John liked a lot of attention. But it was worth it. I mean, that was the thing about John, that he gave as much back as he wanted and demanded. So, relationship with John was always incredibly rich, and loved him for that. I was just talking to Bob outside, who's a friend of John's from his work community that I don't think Pete and I knew much about at all. One of the things that John seemed to do really well was to keep these compartments of his life not deliberately separate, but he could key in to you in the moment, and that was what a relationship was like. If I hadn't spoken to John for 2 years, we somehow seemed to pick up where we'd left off 2 years ago, and it seemed continuous. one story comes to mind that when Pete and I were getting together yesterday, I suddenly remembered that when John was learning to drive, I'd be about 19. How old would John be? How old was John when he went to London? In his mid-20s, maybe? Anyway, John would be about... John was learning to drive, and I think John was learning to drive for at least 30 years. I'd pass my test, so John would occasionally say to me, "Oh, can you just come and sit in the car with me? I'll get the airplanes on, I want to do a bit of practicing." He had a Morris Minor. And so I would do that on occasions, and then one day he said, "Oh, can you come round on Sunday? Because I fancy a drive." And I just said, "Yeah, it was always good fun, of course, with John." Never stopped talking while he was driving, but he said, "Just make it quite early, because about 10 o'clock." So I went round, and he slapped the L plates on, we set off, and normally we would just sort of drive around the area, so it was kind of circular. On this occasion it was quite linear, and we were heading out of Sheffield, and we got to the south side of Sheffield, and I said, "John, where are we going?" And he said, "Norwich." So he decided he wanted to go and see a girlfriend then. He was doing, I think, teacher training in Norwich. So he thought, well, this would be a nice driving lesson. I didn't mind. That's the thing. I didn't mind with John. And we laughed all the way there and all the way back. So, Peter, are you going to say something about what we used to do together?
Yes, yes. Some of what we used to. So, moving to, I suppose, 1970, maybe. So I'd be 20. Chris and John would be 19, 18. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 1975. No, rubbish, what am I talking about? 1970. And we'd be out for Friday evening or Saturday evening, maybe with a girlfriend or friends or whatever, enjoying ourselves. And I can remember saying to whoever I was with on more than one occasion, "Oh, do you know, I'm so tired. It's 11 o'clock, do you mind if I drop you off? Because I think I'm just going to go home, I'm so tired." And she probably would say, "Oh yeah, okay, fine, see you next time. Okay, bye. Right, off to John's." And we belt to John's, and we'd arrive pretty well simultaneously, I think. And it was music night for us, because what would happen, we'd get in, usually my Morris Minor, well, Morris Minors, obviously, and we would drive into the centre of Sheffield with John, a guitar, ourselves, maybe always somebody else. There were various people who used to join us. And there's a little square in the middle of Sheffield called Fitzallen Square. And it's where there was a police phone box, car park, and the taxi queue for the nightclubs going home. So we'd arrive there probably at 12:30, 1 o'clock, and there'd be this huge queue of people, and we'd pull the car into the car park. Right, ready to rumble. Yeah, okay, what we're going to do? Let's sing. So John could play the guitar like unbelievably well. He was so intuitive, as he was in many things, and he could pick out a Beatles song from here without any problem. And we would sit there. Well, that's all we did. We sang Beatles songs.
Yeah, we sang.
We sang and we sang and we sang. And then there was the night when we got joined by a police officer.
Oh yes, we were going through John's repertoire. It was usually John's repertoire of Beatles songs, and we used to sing in, my recollection is, perfect three-part harmonies. Slightly better than the Beatles, of course. And one night we were, it must have been summer, or maybe it wasn't, because the windows were wound down even in winter, I think, just so the taxi queue could hear. And these two policemen came along. And we thought, aye, we're going to get shifted here. Evening, boys.
What are you doing?
Then.
What are you doing?
So we're singing Yellow Submarine. Oh, can we join in? And the sight of John's laughing his head off, and these two policemen singing Yellow Submarine. doing this up and down like they were wonderful days.
They were wonderful days, and they were harmless days. We were communicating that we never did anything that we shouldn't have done. These policemen couldn't actually cope with the fact that these boys were singing songs. What do you mean you're singing songs? Anyway, there we are. And it was all about the Beatles, wasn't it? Really?
It was all Beatles. To celebrate John's life and to celebrate in particular our part of it, we like to dedicate a couple of songs to John, a couple of Beatles songs.
We've done so much rehearsing in the last 15 years. We rehearsed yesterday, didn't we? And but not for long. And we're going to do. We were going to. It's a song called Two of Us, and we were going to sing three of us. And then Chris was quite happy doing that, but it turned out I can't. I have no adaptation in my brain for anything. I just can only do, things in a straight line. So it'll probably be two of us.
Yeah. Okay. And so if you feel like singing, and for John, do. Oh, I'll start again.
Two of us riding nowhere, spending someone's hard-earned pay. You and me Sunday driving, not arriving on our way back home. We're on our way home. We're on our way home. We're going home. Two of us sending postcards, writing letters on my wall. You and me burning matches, lifting latches on our way back home. We're on our way home. We're on our way home. We're going home. You and I have memories longer than the road that stretches out ahead. Two of us wearing raincoats, standing so low in the sun. You and me chasing paper, getting nowhere on our way back home. We're on our way home. We're on our way home. We're going home. You and I have memories longer than the road that stretches out ahead. Two of us wearing raincoats, standing so low in the sun. You and me chasing paper, getting nowhere on our way back home. We're on our way home. We're on our way home. We're going home.
Just imagine John singing along with that, and he never held back, John. That was the thing. He would have been in that in great gusto.
Did he play much music later on with you guys? Did he play the guitar and sing? Yeah, great. I'm so glad. I kind of got the impression that he wasn't doing it anymore. And I know he had a couple of really classic guitars, and yeah, oh good, I'm really glad about that. Well, just to be completely overindulgent with ourselves, and we've got another Beatles song, and then we'll get out of the way, I think, really. But, loads of memories, and I'm sure we're moving to the pub, aren't we, at 6 o'clock, and anybody who's a beer drinker, there's a really nice bitter one, and some Disaronno. There was a special request from somebody who's not going to be mentioned.
Yeah, sorry, you got the bucket.
Yeah, got the message. This is going to be more of a challenge for me, but we'll see how it goes.
We chose this song because the lyrics really. I think you'll sort of see why.
There are places I'll remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone, some remain. All these places had their moments with lovers and friends I still can recall. Some are dead and some are living. In my life, I love them all. But of all these friends and lovers, there is no one compares with you. And these memories lose their meaning when I think of love as something new. Though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them. In your life, we loved you more. There are places I'll remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone, some remain, though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them. Your life, we loved you more. Thanks so much, and yeah, all that sort of stuff happened because of John with us, which is amazing. Now, where are you going to stand, Cook? Yeah, just wait for those things. Are you having fun?
No, it's
Oh, underneath my ridiculously expensive guitar, yeah.
Well, thank you for that, boys. I've got my waterproof mascara already, and you've just washed it completely out. Oh, big deep breath. As my younger brother by 3.5 years, I have the privilege of knowing John longer than anyone. I don't use the word privilege lightly, although had you asked me as a teenager growing up with younger siblings, I probably would have chosen a different terminology. I mean, for instance, when I was 13, and the only way I was allowed to go to the pictures with this rather nice boy from my class was to take John with me, bearing in mind that he was 9.5 then, and just a pain in me, proverbial. As kids, we moved around with our father's job, coming to Sheffield in time for me to go to grammar school. John and Louise went to Nether Green Primary School,
And then later, as Pete remarked, John went to High Stores Boys. He was a talented sportsman and represented the school at various sports, rugby being his first love. Sorry. Our house was Our house was always full of friends connected with one of us, mostly John's. One story does spring to mind. I'd come home from a night out with some friends to find my parents and John in different rooms in our house on Riverdale Road. I'm being looked after by 2 burly policemen in each room. I'm being overseen by a very distinguished man in a DJ. Not knowing what was happening here, I asked the police and they said they wouldn't tell me, but my mum informed me that John had been having a telephone conversation with a couple of friends about a night out for a drink. These were in the days pre-mobile, of course, and they were going for this drink at the Rising Sun in Sheffield. Due to crossed lines on this telephone, the parting comment of "Don't forget the bomb" had been overheard. The police and the special branch were alerted, and that night, in every Rising Sun in Sheffield, and I think there are 4, several plainclothes police were on the lookout for these potential terrorists. The situation was exacerbated because the Irish Prime Minister's brother was visiting relatives in Sheffield. The gentleman in the DJ was the Chief Constable, and he wasn't best pleased at being called away from a gala presentation dinner to deal with some silly schoolboys. Thank goodness John went on to use his creative talent to better use, and I know several of you here have enjoyed his writings. I have to say that the reputation of 22 Riverdale Road went on further because I was selling my car and this gentleman and his daughter came to buy it, and he said, "Oh, you know, what's your name?" And I said, "Oh, it's Helen Amiry." Amiry, he said. And I, "Yeah." "John Amiry?" "Yeah, brother." "Ah, right, okay." And it turned out that he was one of the police that had been involved in it. Sheffield's a small village. Of late, John was always my go-to, font of all knowledge for anything concerned with computers. His stock reply to me was RTFM. However, eventually he would always help. He'll be sadly missed by all who knew him in whatever sphere, but he'll always be my little brother.
Can I use the taller one? Or?
Yeah. You're big enough to adjust your own.
Does this work? Hi, I'm David. John Amiry was my uncle. This always happens when you stand up for these sort of things. But I have to apologise for focusing on the good stuff, Jack. You can tell me off later. So as we all know, my Uncle John was an exquisite combination of intelligence, humour and sophistication. Epicurean in the best possible sense. As a child, I failed to appreciate this due in part to the fact that he forgot almost all of my birthdays. But I could sense he was an exciting person to be around nonetheless. As I grew up, though, I began to benefit from all these qualities. He seemingly had an endless knowledge of a huge variety of subjects, as Jack alluded to. He told jokes with impeccable timing and delivery, and then he knew at what time it was socially acceptable to order a cappuccino and when one should switch to espresso. Effortlessly cool, of course, to boot. In my 20s, I visited New York with 2 friends, and Uncle John offered to take me out for breakfast in Manhattan because he happened to be in the area.
nobody else I knew could do such a thing, and needless to say, my friends were very impressed. And I've not written this bit down, so I apologise if I fluff it, but I vividly remember him telling me a joke at this breakfast, where he said it's an old joke where if you ask for directions to Carnegie Hall, say, how do I get to Carnegie Hall, then the person says, you gotta practice. I didn't get it for about 2 or 3 years, and I wish I could have told him eventually I did get it. I had to fake the laugh at the time, but that's a very vivid memory I have of that. So to me, he was enigmatic, a philosopher, an inspiration, a culinary genius, a moral compass, outrageously generous, and someone I will miss debating with around the dinner table. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being the most interesting person I ever met. It's a shame we rarely get to say these things to people while they're still with us. I hope he's been watching and enjoyed this, as there never was a higher compliment on one's public speaking than one from John Amiry. And I'd like to finish by just saying well done to Jack, Fifi, my mum, Pete, everybody else that I've not mentioned that's created this event. And I recently finished the book, and I think I just wanted to read a small quote from it that I think sums up why we should continue, to sort of talk about stuff like this. And it says, "The thing about a story is that you dream it as you tell it, hoping that others might then dream along with you. And in this way, memory and imagination and language combine to make spirits in the head, and there is the illusion of aliveness." And I think, well, we've all got plenty of stories about Uncle John that we can continue to tell that will mean they'll stay with us.
The microphone's a bit low.
Yeah.
Let's come up a bit further. It's almost like we have to go a bit further as the afternoon went on. So hello everybody, I'm Nick Butcher. I've known John since 1987, and it was due to I was one of his work people, Chris, and as you were saying earlier on. And he became somebody that was a real mentor to me, and he would, I was going to say pontificate, let's say pontificate, because if John was here he'd allow us to say those kind of things, on any subject you could think about. Usually rugby, usually Welsh rugby, so usually that was bullshit. But also on philosophy, on business, on the way you should bring people up, on your life, on your family, on his family. And I would like to tell a couple of stories, but before I do that, it's been clear from what people have said, and from those people that knew and loved John, that he loved above all else his family. And you couldn't really ever talk to John, Fifi and Jack, without him talking about you. And he was so proud. And he never did it in a boastful way. He wasn't one of those guys who wanted to tell you how amazing his family were. He just knew it, and he wanted to tell you. And of course, Chris, as you said, you were interested. He gave it back, and it was always fascinating. The first time I ever met John, not really the first time, but the first time I spoke to him, I worked for a company called Computer People in 1987. Sue was my boss over there, and Bob worked there too. And John, I didn't quite know what John was, but he was a big senior guy. He knew all the bosses, and I was definitely the oily rag in the office. But John's got an idiosyncratic voice, hasn't he? And with Joe's permission, because I did ask her, I'm going to have a crack at it in a moment. So we were on a Friday night drink up over the road, as we did, courtesy of the company. It was the 80s after all, in St Martin's Lane. It was Lennon's bar, so we liked it. And John came in. And he hove over, and I was talking to a chap called Steve Standring, who some of you may know was this impish, puckish sort of character, 3 years older than I was, super successful chap in the business. And he said, John. And John came over, and he said, this is Nick Butcher. And I went, oh, hello. He went, he does an impression of you. I thought, you've got to be kidding me. I've never talking about a forward. And John went, well, do you? And I went, oh, well, not really. He went, so? Are you saying Steve's a liar? Or do you? And I went, oh, okay then. He said, come on then, what have you got? And I went, no, my name's John Amiry. And he went, yeah, and John, very good, yeah. If there's anything remotely interesting, idiosyncratic or individual about you, Nick Bloody Butcher, if that's your name, I do it, but as there isn't, I won't. Good day. I spent the next, I thought, that's it, I'm fired. I've got no chance. The following week, again, free drink up in Lennon's Bar, opposite St Martin's Lane. John was there again, so I thought, I've got to sort him out. I went, hello, John. He went, hello. And I said, I just need to apologise to you. He went, do you? What for? And I said, well, and I told him the story. He went, oh God, did I? He said, I'm really sorry. I've been on the drink all afternoon, I don't remember a thing. Right, you, bar, champagne. And we sat down, he bought the champagne, he went, now look, if you want to do me, okay, first of all, it's not no, it's no-no, all right? That's the start. The second thing, to get the accent, you need to know I'm half Welsh, half Yorkshire, and half Armenian. I said, how can you be half of three things? He went, I just can. So life went on, and I got John a contract, because what we did, we were a recruitment agency, and we would get people contracts, and we would pay them some money and charge the client a lot more money, and it was the 80s, I've told you. And so I got John a contract, so then he became my contract, so we would say worked for me, kind of meant worked through me. So then I got to know him an awful lot better, because we would talk all the time, every day, most weeks. Instead of being this scary senior guy, we became massive friends. And of course the Daffodil Dining Club happened, and we would go to this fancy restaurant in London that most of you may have heard of called Le Gavroche, which I went to with John more times than I can remember. But he was super helpful, and I went to work in Bristol for a while, and I said, John, will you come and help me train some of the guys to see what life is like from the point of view of what you do as a contractor? And he went, all right, kidder, because he always called me that. He said, all right, kidder, I'll come. But I want lunch and a job, so I will be in selling mode. So he told all these guys, and he kept saying, now as a contractor, unemployed, you get... So anyway, he did all the thing. And Chris, when we drove home, I was really tired, and we drove all the way from Bristol back to London. And I said, John had fallen out with somebody who, it's not important for the purpose of this story, but I never knew the story. So I said, can you tell me the story, John? And I tell you what, it was like the best show on Radio 4 I've ever listened to. I sat back, I drove, John spoke, and when I got to the end, I think I knew what he was speaking about, but I'm not absolutely certain. So most recently, I saw John in Spain. So I just happened to go just before the lockdown, so it was almost exactly 2 years ago. We went to the same restaurant, Jack, as we discussed here that you went to. The second one's called Alexa, by the way. And so we went out on a Tuesday lunchtime, and we went for the tasting menu, and Antoxia, that's how you pronounce it, with Black Sabbath playing in. I mean, it's an extraordinary story anyway. So we spoke at enormous length about God knows what. John had a great way of starting a conversation and then moving to parentheses, moving to brackets. So he would say something, and that reminds me, and you thought, is he ever going to close all these sub-clause brackets? And often he didn't, actually, although you never had time anyway. Tuesday was fine, I did something else on the Wednesday, and Thursday, so this was almost exactly 2 years ago, we went to Alexa, and John said, now look, he said, I'm not as young as I once was, so all these days of us having 9 courses and staying out all night are in the past. So before we start, let's just be clear, because you might remember me as a younger man, I remember you from about 2 days ago, pal, but anyway. So we started, and definitely we were going to go home at 8 o'clock. So at 2 in the morning, somebody was going, Señor, tanto goto noches. And John was going, no, can we have one more, you know. So that was just a couple of years ago, and you know, the subsequent news that we got, so we were in touch a lot, you know, on WhatsApp, if you say. I was looking through my old WhatsApp feed, and that's why I remember it was Alexa, the restaurant. And so it was just a dreadful shock when we heard the news, and I'm sure for all of us, it's just appalling. And to see such a massive light go out like that, and how much John will be missed, but equally, that much energy and that much love, that much enthusiasm for life in all sorts of different directions can't help but live on in all of us, I don't think. And it certainly will do in me. And clearly, Jack, it's an entirely different thing because you're his son and you said, well, I need to, and I do the same. You know, the rugby's about to, I can't argue with John about it anymore, tell him why he's wrong about Owen Farrell again. But the final thing I think, that just to leave you with, because I've avoided delving into the Anglo-Saxon too much, but just prepare yourself, children. When John moved to the flat in Richmond, he decided, well, he couldn't do dinner parties at his house, so he did dinner parties at other people's houses. And I think it was the first one he did it at our house. So Ruth is there, Jeremy and Vanessa were guests who were on the table, and a couple of other friends. So John and I had to go to, the deal was I'd buy the drink, he'd buy the food, he'd cook, and it'd be a joint dinner party. So it wasn't a question, you know, that's what was going to happen, that's going to happen. So we went to all the supermarkets in town to buy all the different things, get all the things. John came, he unrolled that thing, which a number of you will have seen, with all his knives on and everything. We cooked the food. He set a napkin alight with his pipe, and we sat down to the main course at midnight. And completely out of it. And in the morning, I said, he said, no, okay, kid, you know, what do you think? And I said, well, it was a brilliant deal. I mean, I think we ate a bit late. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, we didn't eat the main course until midnight. He went, well, you know, that's your fault, isn't it? How is it my fault? He went, you let the chef get pissed. Thank you, everybody.
Well, hello. I'm sure most of you know who I am. I'm Josephine, John's daughter. And my dad always gave me advice. And he gave me a lot of advice. Gave me such a lot of advice. And one that comes to mind now is when you're speaking in front of people is to breathe out and not in. So here goes. I want to thank you all for coming. I'm quite overwhelmed by the support that everyone's shown myself and my family over this last month or so. I've had numerous messages offering help and condolences, Facebook reminiscences, if that's the word, endless stories, and I just wanted to thank all of you for that because it really has meant such a lot. And I also want to thank everyone that spoke today. Dad would have been really proud of all of you, and I am too. It was a huge shock to lose Dad so soon. This time last year we'd made a video for his 70th, and I know he'd love to see us all, and he would have enjoyed today. There are many things that I miss about Dad, how he loved to hear very monotonous, boring news from Essex, and also about the boys and what they've been up to. And he loved to see photos of mostly the boys, and Oliver's certificates from Kung Fu and school, and he'd always say how proud he was of us and of me and what a great job we're all doing. And I always admired his love of food and sharing his food knowledge. He taught me quite a few things, like how to correctly fry an egg, the same way as Albert Roux does, how to finely dice an onion, how to make pea ragout, which is a family recipe, and ultimately he introduced me to fine dining, good champagne, and also showed me why a man wears a tie, which is to catch food on. But he always tried to show me good things and make me a better me, and I think he did quite a good job. Like I said, he gave me loads of advice, but actually the main thing that we liked to do was make each other laugh. It was almost a competition of who could be the funniest. I mean, mostly it was me. But there's one joke that he told me, and I'm not sure everyone will get it, because it took me a little while, and it's how does the Fibonacci band count themselves in 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. And if you don't get it, you need to Google that. And I can hear him laughing now, and honestly, the thing that I really will miss the most is Dad's laugh. I could always find him in a restaurant or a crowded area because of that laugh. Oh yes, he's over there. So what I wanted to do, sorry. So that's really the thing that I miss the most about Dad is his laugh, and I know we all would hear that and laugh along too. So, but just to finish, I want to play Dad's favourite music. Can you get my phone? Thank you. Which is As Time Goes By, played by D. Wilson from his favourite film Casablanca. Thanks, Donna. That's okay. Slightly technical.
Plug it in.
Yeah. I can't even log into it, let alone plug it in. And while we listen to this, I want you all to think of something that made Dad special to you. And then I think it's time to move to the pub.
Remember then, a kiss is just a kiss. You can rely, no matter what the future brings as time goes by. Moonlight and love songs never out of date, hearts full of passion, jealousy and hate. Woman need man, and man must have his way that no one can deny. It's still the same old story, a fight for love and glory, a case of do or die. The world will always welcome lovers as time goes by.
Of tea, I don't think the pub's going to open until about 10 to 6.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh,
time for a chat and stuff.
Forget what he said.
We won't go at the same time.
Maybe I do it. I didn't even notice.
Well, you know, I actually think
Going over to the I was worried that he might not turn around.